Someone's very excited to talk about money today. Hi everyone, I am Robin. I am the copy bitch. This is Stewie, my sidekick sloth. And today we're going to talk about how do you pay yourself as a copywriter? Okay, this question came about because about a decade ago, a good friend of mine who was thinking of making the leap into copywriting land sat down with me one day at lunch with his list of questions, and his first question was, okay, how and when do you pay yourself? And there was something just so beautiful and vulnerable about that question, because if you've been working for a paycheck your whole life and suddenly you're now self-employed, it's an honest question. And you're kind of like, how do I do this? How do I do it legally? What if someone comes after my sloth? So before we get started, just a reminder, I am not an accountant, I'm not a lawyer. That said, I will give you my perspective on how I paid myself and what I went through and how I recommend you think about money and business and paying yourself. Keep in mind also that I'm in the US, based outside of Boston, Massachusetts, so your mileage will vary depending on where you are, other countries, all that good stuff in terms of taxes. But in terms of how I pay myself, which I do every month, one of the things that people struggle most when they start a small business, especially if they're self-employed and they're working as a vendor, they're not in like a brick and mortar shop where things are a little more tangible, like you have the cash register and you have, receipts and things like that. When you're working in this business where someone pays you for a service and it's all happening, in your living room, it's like, really? Someone's paying me for this? Is this legal? And then they're paying you for writing, which if you're a copywriter, I'm assuming you love to write. It almost feels illegal, doesn't it? It's like someone's paying me to do this thing I love to do, and that kind of comes easily to me. Like, huh? What? First of all, I want to remind you that what you do is incredibly valuable to businesses if you do it well, which of course you do because you're listening to these videos. We have to get serious when we talk about money, and we have to get not scared. Stop being scared when it comes to money talk. It can be intimidating. It can be overwhelming. You start to think about things like taxes and IRS. I just want to write my copy, have someone pay me for it so I can just go off and binge on Netflix. I get it. We want things to be simple. So here I am trying to simplify the whole concept for you, okay? Okay. When it comes to your business as a freelance copywriter, I want you to think about money in terms of 3 buckets or 3 sections. Picture a pie and cut it into thirds. Pie. So those 3 buckets would be the revenue you have coming in. That's the stuff that your clients are paying you. Then you have to think about taxes to the federal government. Again, I'm in the US, and also taxes to your state. That's the second bucket. And then the third bucket is expenses. So things like internet service, your phone that you use for your business, your email subscriptions, Microsoft Office 365 or whatever the hell they're calling it these days. You get the idea. You have certain business expenses that are applied to your business. So kind of think of your business and the money that's coming in and out in those 3 buckets. And thinking about it in those 3 buckets, you're going to hear this adage if you haven't already encountered it before, to think about things in thirds. Like a third of the money is your, what you take home, a third of the money is business expenses, and a third goes to taxes. It's not always as clear cut as that. And again, not an accountant, not a financial advisor, not a lawyer, could not shimmy up the ropes in gym class. So just keep that in mind. But it's not a bad way to think about it from a high level, philosophically speaking, to think about it in thirds, because you have the money coming in, roughly a third of that you have to put aside for taxes, again, give or take, depending on your financial situation, and then you have a third towards business expenses. Now, the reason why I say be careful with thinking about that too closely when it comes to your business is that in our business, as a freelance copywriter, where you're working from your, dining room table perhaps, or a spare bedroom, or the comfy couch, or in your studio apartment where everything is kind of together, you don't have as much overhead as someone who maybe has a small business where they have machinery, or they have, a truck that they need to go somewhere, a commercial truck that they use to get to their clients, et cetera, et cetera. Our business expenses are fewer, which is a nice thing. We don't have the overhead, you don't have as much. So you might not have a third of what's coming in going off to pay business expenses. My biggest business expense is health insurance, and that goes up every single year because I'm just a lucky person, right? But that is one of the consistently bigger expenses that I pay out every month on my business. Now, you will have the monthly expenses. We will also have those one-offs where, you have a computer that craps a bit and you have to get a new one, or maybe you have to get a new office chair because yours is peeling and the black masking tape that you've been using isn't working so well. So let me tell you how I pay myself every month to kind of illustrate what I do. And again, keep in mind that you might do things differently. Or other people might do things differently. I have a business banking account and a personal banking account, and it's with the same bank because I like the ease of having it in the same place. I use an online banking portal, or I use the bank's online banking portal because that makes things super easy. And every month, at the beginning of the month, I transfer money from my business account to my personal account. And it's pretty much the same amount every month. I have a slight range, but it never goes usually below or above that range. I might have a personal Visa bill coming in a little higher that month because maybe it was the holiday season. I know my Christmas gifts were on that. It's going to be a higher bill, so I might go on the upper end of that range and pay myself a little more. And vice versa, or on the other hand, some months might be a little leaner because maybe I haven't had as much revenue come in that month, so I might not pay myself as much. But usually I'm within this like little reference range of money, and that's what I move from my business account to my personal account, and I do that every month. Now, of course, you can set up recurring monthly payments within these online banking portals. I choose not to because I like being forced to go in there every month, and I'm in there more than just once a month, but I like to go in there at the beginning of the month to see what's what, make sure everything's copacetic. I usually close out the previous month and just, update my books and my checkbook and make sure everything is all set, and then I pay myself my monthly allowance or my monthly pay, and I go on my merry way. And that works for me, and that's how I pay myself. Now, you might be saying, okay, well, where's that money coming from? What's that money that you're paying? Well, that's the money that's left over after you pay your taxes and after you pay your monthly business expenses. So remember, the three buckets: you have revenue, you have the taxes that you have to pay, and you have the monthly business expenses. Well, in a perfect world, you'll be making enough revenue that you will have money left over after you pay your taxes and your monthly expenses. Probably not at the beginning. At the very beginning, you might just be making a few extra bucks, or you might be doing this as a side hustle until you get going. I understand that. So I realize that first year it's a little bit murky, but once you start getting that regular revenue, you start having a regular roster of clients, repeat clients, you can actually forecast mentally, okay, in April I'll be bringing in $5,000, and June I'll be bringing in $10,000 a month. Like, you get to know what you're going to be making, and then you pay yourself accordingly. And I suppose you could do it on a weekly basis. I find it's just easier to do it in one lump sum every month. So you do you if you want to pay yourself every week, if you want to pay yourself twice a month, or if you want to pay yourself once a month. That's what you do. You just take the money from your business bank account and put it into your personal bank account, and you've just paid yourself. You might be thinking, is this legal? I get it. I suffer from big Catholic guilt, and I worry all the time. Am I doing this right? Is there something else I should be doing? Again, not a lawyer, not an accountant, but here's the thing. The stuff that you need to be paying legally are the taxes. And if you've already got that covered, if you've been putting aside that extra money for your quarterly estimates. And the reason why you should pay quarterly estimates is because if you don't, you're going to have a really big tax bill come April. And that can be a real hard pill to swallow. It's big, and it can be big. I mean, if you're making money and doing your job well, you're going to be making money and you're going to have taxes to pay. So I recommend paying the quarterly taxes. That's what you're supposed to do. So on top of not paying your quarterly estimates, you'll have to pay a penalty if you don't do that quarterly. And it just makes it much easier to do because it's a smaller amount if you spread the payment across 4 payments rather than one big, bulky, scary honking payment, right? Sometimes with my quarterly estimates, this has happened, I think, maybe twice in the last 19 years, I have underestimated what I was going to make that year. It's a good problem to have. It means that I made more money than I thought I was going to, so that my quarterly estimates were a little off. You don't get in trouble for that, but you do have to pay the difference. So sometimes come April 15th, I'm paying what I owe for the previous year, plus I'm paying the Q1 quarterly estimate for the next year, or the current year that I'm in, and that can be sometimes a big pill to swallow as well. So that's only happened a couple times. You're gonna fumble. That's okay. Like, you're going to make mistakes, and year to year you're gonna realize, okay, I have to do this differently next year, and talk about this differently, and think about this differently. That's called learning. That's called business. You're gonna figure it out. So to recap, think about the 3 money buckets. You have your revenue coming in from your clients. You have to keep in mind the taxes that you'll be paying, and you have to keep in mind your monthly expenses, okay? And then the leftovers from the revenue after you pay your monthly expenses and your taxes, that's gonna kind of accumulate in your business banking account. You should definitely have a business banking account. Don't combine personal and business. It just gets messy. And then you pay yourself month to month, or if you wanna do it every week, every other week, you do you. I do it every month. At the beginning of the month, I go into my business banking account and go, okay, I'm gonna pay myself, and I move money from that account to my personal business account. Got it? Makes sense? A couple more tips before I go. I highly recommend that you work with, first of all, a financial advisor to talk about your retirement. You don't want to let that go. If you've never worked with a financial advisor before, the way it works, depending on who you work with, but like your Edward Jones, your Fidelities, those are the two that I'm thinking of off the top of my head. I use Edward Jones. This is not an endorsement or support or paid anything. It's just who I use, and I've been using since the beginning because I met someone in my networking days early on who was from Edward Jones, and I started working with him. And I've rotated through several folks with Edward Jones, but I like the guy that I have now, Alex. Hi, Alex, if you're watching this. And the nice thing about working with a company like that, first of all, you are paying them ultimately. Everyone gets paid, but it's from your actual retirement account. The fees usually come out of what you put in because they make money when you make money. It's not like contracting a plumber where you have to pay, $500 to just get them to service you. Or to service your house. Well, that sounded naughty. Talk to a financial advisor. It's well worth your time, and get in the habit of putting aside money every month towards your retirement, especially if you're on the younger side and you're thinking, I don't need to worry about that. If you are working for a company, they might have a 401k plan or some other sort of retirement that would be taken out of your paycheck, and you're putting it towards your retirement and you're not really thinking about it. You need to apply that same logic to your self-employed business, especially because you're the one looking out for yourself. So get in the habit of putting something aside. Start small. It's perfectly okay to just put aside, $10, $20. Look at it as like, a couple lunches that you didn't, take at Subway, and put it towards your retirement. And then here's the trick. Increase that every month or every quarter. So with Alex, my financial advisor guy, he knows every quarter he reaches out to me and we add another 25 or 50, I forget what it is, to what I've been giving. And that adds up quickly. It's less painful because it's $25, $50. I know, please forgive me, I know that might sound like a really rich figure, and is a rich figure for a lot of folks who might be watching this video, but from my standpoint, for me, I'm very lucky that is a figure that feels very easy to just up my retirement, and I can put that money aside. So get into that habit. That's a good habit to do. The other thing you want to do pretty early on, I would recommend, is working with a bookkeeper / accountant. They might have either title. I worked with a bookkeeper for a ton of years, and I think he actually was an accountant too, but he called himself like bookkeeping and more type of services. And every March I met with him and kind of, gave him the lay of the land, gave him my profit and loss statement, gave him my information, all my 1099s that I get from clients since I'm an independent contractor, and he took care of my taxes. And then he retired, so now I actually work with a tax accounting firm because I didn't want to go through that process again of working with one person having to replace him. So now I work with a firm, so in case someone, retires or, kicks the bucket, there's still people within the firm that I can, count on. Like, my life continues to go on even if theirs didn't. So that's something else I recommend doing. And yes, it is an expense. here's the thing. I think that Hollywood has ruined us when it comes to dealing with people like accountants or lawyers, because we always hear the worst case scenarios for how much these people cost, usually because they're talking about criminal defense trials that can cost, hundreds of thousands of dollars or whatever. When you're just dealing with day-to-day transactions, tax accountants or real estate lawyers or an estate planner who's working on your will, it's reasonably cost. It's not, tens of millions of dollars or necessarily even thousands and thousands, depending on who you work with. So don't be scared of reaching out to these folks, getting quotes, and working with people who make sense to your business. At the minimum, I would recommend financial advisor and also a bookkeeper / tax accountant, and have that person do your taxes at the end of the year. The reason why you might think, and you know what, if you love doing your own taxes and you get some sort of personal satisfaction from having done it and everything, fine, that's fine. You do you, as I say here on Ask the Copy Bitch. But I want to challenge the thinking a little bit, because let's say it takes you 10 hours to do your taxes start to finish, from getting all the receipts together and 1099s and making sure all your T's are crossed and I's are dotted and all that sort of stuff. What could you be doing with that 10 hours, especially if you're paid with a client? And let's say, that 10 hours can translate to $100 an hour because of a project you did for a client. Wouldn't that be better than spending the 10 hours just working on your taxes on your own? Because you're probably not going to be spending that much to pay a tax accountant to do your taxes for you. So just keep that in mind whenever that goes with anything that you're thinking of doing yourself. Before you do it yourself, ask yourself, okay, can I make more money? Or how much time is this going to take me? And can I make more money if I just, outsource that work and go find work for a client that I actually get paid for? Maybe you're just working on the marketing for your business because that's going to pay off at some point. Something to think about. You do you, your mileage will vary, all that sort of good stuff. So I know we kind of went all over the place with this video, but it's an important question. And then, like I said, a very honest, vulnerable question. You are a freelance copywriter, you're new to this, and you're thinking, how the heck do I pay myself? Doesn't have to be hard. You're going to have a business bank account. You have revenue coming in from your clients. You keep a certain amount of that aside for taxes that you pay every quarter. You also have your monthly business expenses, and then you are going to have leftover money, and that's where you pay yourself from. And you just go take it from your business account and put it into your personal banking account. If you're smart and you have that all in the same bank and the same online portal, it's very easy. You can set up recurring payments if you want, and that's how you do it. Again, writer, not a lawyer, not an accountant, not a banker, not really very talented in any other way. So I hope that helped answer the question about how you pay yourself as a freelance copywriter. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. That really helps. Consider subscribing to my channel. And as always, I'm Robin. I am the Copy Bitch. This is the Great Stubinsky, Stewie, and we will see you next time.